Michelle Anderson from Anderson Music Therapy, and today I have Michelle Lebrec.
Mhm.
I,
Yes.
Michelle Lebrec with me. So she's going to share her story with you and with me, just so we can learn and open our minds a little bit more of what families with special needs go through each day. So, Michelle, can you tell me a little bit about your family?
Yeah, so I have three kids. My oldest is 9. He has optic nerve hypoplasia, ADHD, autism spectrum disorder, and anxiety. Then my 8-year-old daughter has, right now, it's disruptive mood dysregulation disorder, but it was previously bipolar disorder, ADHD, oppositional defiance disorder, PTSD, anxiety, and she's currently being tested for autism as well. And then I have a 4-year-old daughter who has an IEP because she has significant developmental delays, kind of across the board. So that's us.
Would you, some of those diagnoses aren't as familiar, probably to some people. Would you want to explain any of those for
So
people who might
disruptive
be
mood
here?
dysregulation disorder, that one, the abbreviation is DMDD, and it is the way it's been described to me is that it's like the juvenile form of bipolar disorder. It can go away, but that's kind of what they label a child under the age of 14 who is showing signs of bipolar disorder because it is a less severe label.
Mhm.
Um, PTSD, of course, is post-traumatic stress disorder. Oppositional defiance disorder is ODD. And then ADHD is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder.
Okay. And the first one you'd mentioned with your
Oh,
son.
yes, optic nerve hypoplasia disorder. He is blind in one eye. A lot of kids that have it have, they also have a link to having autism, digestive issues, even their genitals tend to not grow the way that they're supposed to. They have hormone imbalances, things like that.
Okay. So with all that, what has been your biggest challenge that you've experienced?
Um, Probably finding services in the community as well as ending that stigma. When you tell someone that you're at the time 6-year-old, when my daughter was diagnosed with all those mental health conditions, what I got was, "What did you do? What happened to her? Why is she that way?" They didn't. It was really hard for people to understand that she started showing signs of having a mental health condition at 3 years old. We knew that something she was not developing typically. She would go through rages. She had a lot of aggression at even 18 months old.
Wow.
So you hear the typical, oh, terrible twos, oh, terrible threes, and it never stopped. And then it got worse as she got older. That's been the hardest thing is even with professionals, having them understand that, yes, I do a pretty good job at managing her condition and I do a pretty good job at finding her services. But even with professionals, you'll hear, well, you should try this or you should do that instead of pointing you in the right direction of, well, here's this service or here's this service. Um, that's really the most devastating thing is when your child is diagnosed, you get told, here's her diagnosis, here's their prescriptions, see you in a month for a follow-up.
Right.
And so you're kind of left going, okay, what does this mean? What did I do? Parents, even if you don't have a special needs child, parents, if your child falls off their bike, you feel like, why didn't I catch them? Why didn't I help them? Why didn't I see this was going on sooner? And then if you have a child with a special need, you beat yourself up even more for anything and everything, even if it's beyond your control completely.
Right. That mom guilt
Hmm.
is
It's horrible. So,
yeah, yeah, and I've seen with friends and clients just how you can get into that blaming yourself when probably has nothing to do with you. I mean, it just things.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, and with mental health conditions, it is partially a biological component, but it's also chemical. So you
Hmm.
can have a chemical imbalance and not have a single family member who's ever had it, but it's going to happen. Or you can have your entire family who has some level of mental health condition, but chemically you're fine. You may never show a single symptom. So it goes both ways. And helping people to understand that is kind of my mission, is help them understand it's no one's fault if she had diabetes or um, leukemia or any other diagnosis. They wouldn't necessarily blame the mom. They would say, oh, how can I help you, what can I do, do you need me to watch your other kids so you can take her to appointments? And you don't get that a whole lot when it's mental health.
Right. Right. And I can imagine it's really important to try to keep a positive frame of mind.
Yeah.
Negativity. So, what has been your biggest success that you've experienced?
My biggest success, I would say, is finding my own time for self-care, as strange as that is to say.
Oh, that's
Um, yeah, I mean, I used to have people who were like, well, make sure you take time out for self-care. Make sure you're taking care of yourself. Make sure you're, you know, enjoying the little things. And I would always laugh and say, when do I have time? Yeah, I'll be sure to do that when I'm dead, things like that. And it went from kind of joking about it to going, okay, this is serious. Mommy's having her own little nervous breakdown. We need to get this taken care of, because you can't help your child if you're struggling.
right.
And there was a time before I learned that we hadn't left the house in 18 months except to go to doctor's appointments. And from finding how to give myself self-care and take care of myself, it's actually come across on my kids. When my kids are having a bad day, my daughter now will say, Mom, I just need 5 minutes. I'm going to listen to my music. I need to take care of me.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
when I'm asking her to clean her room, that's not such a great thing. But it's the fact that she is learning that she has to be able to take care of herself too.
Right. Yeah, that's huge. And
Yeah.
kids really do pick up on your mood,
Mhm.
and they see your habits too.
Yeah.
So if you're making that habit of self-care, they're going to pick up on that and know
Hmm.
that is important. And I think as a parent, especially a parent that has extra, appointments and therapies, it's like, how do I find time? But it really, like you said, it comes down to prioritizing it.
Yeah. And it's realizing that even 10 minutes, I do a lot, helping out with other families now, helping to advocate for them, um, attending workshops and trainings and things like that. And so I always plan to arrive like even 15 minutes early. And I tell this to everyone I meet. I sit in the car because my kids aren't in there, and I listen to my old 90s rap music that you can't listen to with children. And I jam out and sing as loud as I can off key. And that just recharges me, because that gets me in touch with who I am.
Yeah.
I didn't used to be a mom. I used to be someone who listened to gangster rap music and, acted silly and stuff. And, I have to show my kids a different side, and I have to be strong for them. So it kind of lets me have just even that 15 minutes kind of reminds me that I am still Michelle. I'm not just mom.
Right. Yeah, and that is so, so important because you
Yeah.
can lose yourself. I think any parent feels that way, but also again,
Mhm.
when you have those extra responsibilities, it really is so important
Exactly.
to lose yourself. Um, so what would you like people to know? You've shared a few things so far that maybe people didn't know what
Mhm.
it's like having a child with special needs, but what would you specifically like someone to know that hasn't walked in your shoes?
I would like for anybody, both special needs world and the ones who aren't in the special needs world, I would like just everybody to understand that we are still parents. We still celebrate our kids' successes and help lift them up when they're struggling. Just like any parent, we just may have a few obstacles to get over before we get to celebrate those successes. We still struggle with maintaining our home just like anyone else. We might just have a tornado that goes through it every few days. So we're all in the same battle, and we all just need to make sure that we're kind of lifting ourselves up and each other up, instead of doing that mom blame where it's, well, I would never let my kids do this, or I would never let my kid do that. because on the outside it may look like, yeah, I'm letting my daughter get by with, saying things to me that you might not let your daughter say. But it's because the alternative is worse. So
Yeah.
it's choosing that battle.
Right. Right. And I think you had mentioned what was in my head. Oh, you had mentioned about the encouraging moms, and I just put so funny. I just put on Facebook a video of how we need to encourage each other, and it's so easy to do to really
Yeah.
to encourage each other. Uh,
Hmm.
but I feel that some people maybe are in a habit of that blaming, that
Yes.
mom blaming. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Um, so along those same lines, do you have any encouragement or words of wisdom that you'd like to share with other families?
Yeah, absolutely. You're not alone. And I think that's really the biggest thing is when you get your child's diagnosis, you feel like, why is this happening to my child? How is, I'm the only one that's going through this, whatever the case is. And I think that's easy to do because you don't know who else is going through similar situations until you start voicing that.
Right.
Finding your tribe is huge. And by tribe, I mean just that circle of people who understand what you're going through, who
Yeah.
understand that if you say, oh my gosh, my child is driving me crazy, I'm never going to make this, I just want to send him away, for instance, we all somewhat joke about that because we know it's not even a possibility. It would never actually cross our minds. But finding someone who you're able to joke with in that manner without them taking you seriously and judging you for it, that's big because they're the ones that can go, you know what, I got you. I'll be there in 10 minutes with wine. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
finding those people who will understand what you're going through and help you through it. That was huge for me.
Where would you recommend somebody watching this video? Where would you recommend that they look for those people?
Yeah, on Facebook there is the support group Special Families. It is a support group run by amazing women who everybody in the group has a child with some type of special need, whether it's mental health, a physical disability, or anything in between. So they are going to understand a lot of what you're going through. They're going to help offer you resources like different service providers in the area who can come talk, or even just that 2 hours, once a month that you have that break of childcare is sometimes all you need. So
Yeah, yeah. And earlier you had mentioned about the self-care, and I totally forgot to ask what would be, I guess, what are kind of your go-to self-care routines or what
yeah,
you tend to do?
yeah. One of them, like I said, is just arriving to any school morning or meeting, doctor's appointment, whatever, and listening to music,
Mhm.
whatever your choice is, or taking your kids for a walk, or investing in noise cancellation headphones. So that way, if you're in the car and your kids are screaming and fighting in the back seat, you can at least put on headphones and sit in a parking lot for 5 minutes as long as the child doors are locked, you
Yeah,
know, things like that. Just anything, any 5, 10, 15 minutes a day that you can just, etch out and go, okay, here's my 5 minutes.
yeah,
Learning to put restrictions even on friends and family. So if you have a sister who has to call every day and complain about her boyfriend, saying, you know what, I cannot talk to her today, I will call her tomorrow.
mhm,
Um, Setting those limitations on anybody so that way they don't drain you as well and you can recharge more.
absolutely. Yeah, boundaries are so important.
Mhm.
That's a good point that you bring up for sure.
Yes.
Is there anything else that you would like to add before we close out?
Um, Not really. I mean, you pretty much covered all of my points. So,
Awesome. Um, and I like how when we were emailing back and forth before, you mentioned how you as the parent are kind of are the authority of your child. You know
yeah.
your child best, and the professionals. Even myself, I always refer to the parent to
Hmm.
when I'm like coming up with goals. Even we do an assessment and everything, but I'm not going to say yes, this is definitely the goal until I talk
Right.
to the parent and say, is this really where you want to focus?
Right.
you're with them day in and day out. And in different scenarios, your child acts differently sometimes.
Yeah.
I really
Yeah.
like.
My kids, it's funny when they first meet a new professional, they're angels. They
Mm,
get along and they're happy and they use all their manners and it's great. And then I'm looking at the professionals and they're like, this
right?
mom is crazy. There is nothing wrong with this child. And then around appointment 2 or 3, that's when it's like, okay, this is no longer new and fun. I'm going to start showing my behind. And then you can kind of see the recognition on the professional's face of, oh, okay, mom wasn't making this up. This is really how things are. And so I think parents as well need to be able to be upfront with their like whatever professional it is, to let them know that my child has a lot of great strengths, but we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about whatever it is that you're needing to work with that professional on. So if you know that your child does have like a honeymoon period, so to speak, that they're going to act like angels for however many appointments, and then that's when, okay, they're going to stop. Here's what you need to look for when that happens. So that way the professional doesn't just necessarily think, okay, maybe the child's just having a bad day. They know, nope, this is how it's going to be, and then they can get help faster.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
A good point.
So,
Well, that's all I had. Questions I had. Was there anything else you wanted to add?
nothing I can really think of. I think you covered it. That was awesome.
Well, thank you so much, Michelle. And I do want to mention, because we mentioned self-care and support and finding your tribe. I have 2 free support groups that are starting in the next month or so. Um,
Awesome.
Off the top of my head, let me think. One is going to be an online support group,
Okay.
and so that, like you said, how you were in the house for 18 months.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just can't get out. There's just too much going on, and while that is really important to do, sometimes it's just not possible.
Oh, yeah.
So this online support group is, we're going to do 15 minutes of self-care. So 15 minutes of relaxation, like music assisted relaxation or some kind of mindfulness. And then parents can either log off after that. They need to go do something, or they can stay on and chat and kind of build that tribe with the people that are in that online support group. So I appreciate all the things that you said, because I'm like, all right, yeah, it sounds like I'm on point with what you're going through and what you need. Another free group coming up, and it's going to be an in-person one. It's going to be
Okay.
parents support group and relaxation for 45 minutes, and then at the same time, their kids are going to have a music therapy session with my other music
Awesome.
therapist. All right. Well, thank you so much, Michelle, for sharing with me and sharing with those who are watching. I really do think that you really shared a lot of important information for both parents with special needs and um, parents who have kids with special needs and parents who
Hmm.
don't. So I really think that a lot of people will find this beneficial, and I really appreciate the time that you took
Yeah.
to talk with me.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. You take care.
Bye.